and I am the Communications and Operations Manager at CDFI Friendly America. And I am going to be your host for these webinars. We're going to wait a couple minutes for people to come in. Maybe not a couple, maybe 1 minute for people to come in. But to kind of get acclimated and start networking with each other, we're going to do a nice little icebreaker. So if you could use the chat and put your name, your pronouns, and where you work or go to school. And I shout you out. And make sure it's to everybody. I know sometimes I use the chat and I do it to whoever's talking, but we want to network. All right, guys. Hey, Susan. All right.
Hello.
And Corey. Here we go. Okay, we have a lot of people from all over the country, West Coast, East Coast, amazing, Midwest. Hi, Brianna. Nice. All right, guys. So as you're using the chat, you're also doing this so that we can network with each other. I'm going to give a couple housekeeping notes. So for this webinar, we're going to keep our microphones muted until we go into the networking rooms, which I'll talk about in a little bit. So make sure those mics are muted so your dog doesn't start barking. You want to change your view option to active speaker because we are going to use the spotlight so that you can see who's speaking. If you're on a phone or an iPad, it's going to automatically do that, so no worries. And again, let's use this chat feature. So you can use it to ask questions throughout this webinar. And this is not a stuffy webinar. So if you want to scream out a yes, go ahead and do that. So use that chat feature. So just a little bit about this series. This is CDFIs 101, Impact Job CDFIs 101. And it's a 4 webinar series. We're going to be doing it for the first or for the 4 Wednesdays in the beginning of May. Hey, Lola. Each webinar has a different topic. Today is CDFIs 101. What do they do and why do they do it? Giving really the nitty gritty of CDFIs. After each webinar, you're going to get an email with the recording of the webinar and a survey. So let's say maybe you can't come next week, you're going to get an email with the recording. And then please complete that survey so that we can make each one better. And then hopefully the next, maybe CDFIs 202, make that one better. And then after these webinars, if you do attend all 4 or watch the recording and let us know that you did, you're going to get a certificate, CDFIs 101 completion certificate. So that can be a nice little edge as you're applying for jobs. And I want to thank our sponsors, Sinair, CDFI Friendly America, and also thank you guys for your registration donations that will 100% go to the African American Alliance of CDFI CEOs, which you'll learn about in about 2 minutes. An amazing organization. And my last shout out is to our CDFI friendly social media interns, Lola Cleveland from Emory University, Riley Melton from Indiana University, and Patrick McGuire from Notre Dame University, who without them, this event wouldn't have been as amazing as it's going to be. And the best part about this is that they helped design this event with us in mind, people who are CDFI newbies. So while we do have some CDFI veterans on the call, I'm sure you'll learn a little something, but maybe it won't be as groundbreaking as it is for people like me, like many of you who are just learning about CDFIs. So a little bit about myself. Again, my name is Bria Moss-Wilkerson. I am the Communications and Operations Manager at CDFI Friendly America, but I'm also an entrepreneur. I own a dance fitness studio in Philadelphia called Dance Fit. And I opened that a little over 3 years ago. And as opening any business can be, it was a tough process. It wasn't easy, but one of the struggles was getting financing for my business. My father and I went to traditional banks and denied. It wasn't until we went to 2 credit unions and took out personal loans in my name and him co-signing it that we were able to finance my business. So a couple years into it, one of my clients knew that I was also working a second job to pay my own bills. And she said, hey, my husband, he has an office and he might need some help. Little did I know her husband is Mark Pinsky, the founding partner of CDFI Friendly America. And for those who don't know, one of the pioneers in the CDFI industry. And working for he and Adina Abramowitz's company, CDFI Friendly America, I learned that there are these organizations called CDFIs, or Community Development Financial Institutions, that are created just to finance people like me who have trouble with getting financing, underserved communities, overlooked people, with entrepreneurship, with affordable housing, with basically anything. So I was super excited to learn about that. And I was connected to a CDFI, Community First Fund, and now I am a CDFI borrower as well through my business. So to tell you a little bit more about CDFIs, I was able to do an interview with Lenwood Long, who is the president and CEO of the African American Alliance of CDFI CEOs. And the interview is just phenomenal, if I do say so myself. So I'm going to share it now, and I hope you enjoy it. Again, try to keep those microphones on mute. And while we're sharing, if you can turn off your camera, that would be great. Explain just a little bit about what you do. Who are you and what do you do?
I am Lenwood Long, President and CEO of the African American Alliance of CDFI CEOs, known as AAA. This is an organization of 51 Black-led CDFIs throughout the United States. And one of our core goals is the eradication or the elimination of the closing of the racial wealth gap that exists in this country.
Tell me about when you first learned about CDFIs.
I was working with community economic development credit unions, and some of those credit unions were CDFI credit unions. What captured my appetite and my interest was the fact that I saw people coming into that credit union who had been denied credit, who could not build credit, who had no access to capital, but for this credit union. So it was for this moment of but for this credit union, people who needed simple thing as a car, who needed tuition for college, who needed a down payment for a house because they couldn't go to a bank. It was that look in people's faces that we have some ownership here that really gave me a desire to want to hang in there and to see that, because coming out of the segregated South was for me an opportunity to do something that I couldn't do during the civil rights era, being able to work to make sure capital was accessible for Black people.
Wow, my heart is fluttering hearing that.
Right.
It's a different form of protest, but
oh, it is. At the height of the civil rights, I was in Vietnam, and then coming home from Vietnam and not being able to walk in the front door of a restaurant, and then have this transition where I'm able to participate in the liberation opportunity of capital for Black people, for me, was my moment.
Now, what motivates you to continue doing the work that you do?
It became a part of my DNA because I enjoy helping people. And I must confess that part of that came from my denial of opportunity to have access to capital. And so it's the same parallel I used to use with my children, right? I knew what I went through, and I didn't want them to go through that.
Can you give me a little bit of history on race within the financial industry, and also how it applies to CDFI?
I think what unites the industry is the mission itself. And so you take the mission and it's almost race neutral when you look at the mission, right? Where you begin to see the separation is the implementation of the mission. Because of systemic racism, the allocation of the resources have not been the same. And so you've had investors who make financial decisions around where they invest dollars have allowed their investment to be clouded by their own racism. If everything was equal, then there would be no gaps in the balance sheet between white-led CDFIs and black-led CDFIs. Hope Institute has done some research and say that the gap is 6-to-1. Here's the way I explain it. My counterpart CDFI can go to Chick-fil-A and get a #1. I can get a small fry. I can't afford anything else. I use that analogy sometimes just to say that the difference between enough funds to buy a full meal as opposed to a part of meal shows the under-resourced capacity of many black-led CDFIs. The communities they serve suffer from the same thing that they have. The underserved are serving the underserved.
Now you are working on something that is poised to help fix that issue in African American Alliance of CDFI.
It's raising the conscious awareness of we can do better than this. The Alliance, through its policy work, really has played a significant role in raising the awareness of the lack of inclusion. Common voices who saw inequities and say, let's put our voices together and ask for change. So for minorities and young people kind of looking into community development in general, but also working in CDFI specifically, what opportunities are there? Many opportunities. One may say, well, I'm in the financial era. I'm not really in helping the people. Good, you have skills. CDFIs, they need accountants, they need attorneys, they need planners, they need business development coaches. If you would take that talent and say, I have this skill set, I have this passion, and I wanted to put it to work, that I can see measurable impact, measurable results in the lives of people. So you don't have to be in the community to have an impact on the community. Many skill sets, many opportunities, but the end result, somebody is helped by your effort. Absolutely amazing. There were so many gems in that interview, and I'm so glad that I was able to share that with y'all. So moving on, thank you, Lenwood, also for doing that interview with me. And moving on to our next speaker, I'd like to introduce Mr. Gary Cunningham. He is the president and CEO of Prosperity Now and the former CEO of MEDA, which is a small business CDFI in Minneapolis. He's going to give a brief history lesson on why communities need CDFIs. And he's going to talk about why access to capital is so important and the barriers that low income, low wealth communities face in accessing responsible, affordable capital.
Well, thank you, Bria. I am so glad to be here today and to talk about the power of CDFIs to build a more equitable economy that works for everyone. First, I'd like to talk about access to capital and why it's so important. Access to capital for low and moderate income communities is important for a variety of reasons. One, we know that access to capital builds wealth and assets for families. They can come in the form of home ownership or business, savings for vehicles like emergency savings or retirement accounts. This builds long-term financial security and stability. When individuals and families are financially secure, the entire community thrives and is made stronger. We know that CDFIs are one of the most promising solutions to ensuring that capital access in low and moderate income communities, particularly BIPOC communities. However, I know well from my time of running a CDFI for a number of years that really this issue of focused on entrepreneurs of color, that there are serious barriers to be addressed when it comes to accessing capital. This lack of access to capital is long-standing and well-documented problem. It didn't just occur with COVID. It actually precedes that by many, many years. In fact, a few facts. The Federal Reserve study, Federal Reserve study, I don't know who's not muting there, but I'm gonna start over for y'all. There's some well-documented evidence that that this issue of lack of access to capital, particularly for community of colors, is there. A Federal Reserve study found that only 40% of minority businesses received the full amount of their loan requests compared to 68% of non-minority firms, as an example. A similar study also showed that in 2021, firms owned by people of color were least likely to report receiving the full amount of the financing that they sought during the COVID crisis. Data also confirms that Black small business owners receive less credit than their white peers. So we got a problem, we know that. Additionally, in a recent study conducted by my organization, Prosperity Now, we found that from 2010 to 2020, the SBA's 504 and 7A lending programs, these are some of the largest lending programs in the country. When lending in Black and Native American zip codes were significantly lower than in majority white zip codes. We got some work to do. And we want to change the world. So we are actually going to fix this, and we're going to fix this with your help. Thus, the role of CDFIs is critical in acting as an alternative lender. When we call them alternative lenders, what we mean is they're mission driven. Our mission is to change access to capital in communities of color and low income communities across this country by providing capital at a lower rate, providing trusted guidance to both business and housing, and help BIPOC communities access markets. I'll now turn it back to Bria and open the door to a couple of questions if there's time. Bria?
Yeah, so we actually do have time for probably one question or a couple. We got about a minute. If anybody wants to put a question in the chat here, we got about 10 seconds, and then I'm gonna ask one. Okay, so one of the questions that I have, Gary, you led a CDFI in Minneapolis, and you know, just like I said in the interview with Lenwood, it's kind of, this is a different form of protest. So can you kind of touch on the role and response of CDFIs in the wake of the racial injustice and the outrage stemming from George Floyd?
Yeah, and it's so interesting, Bria, that I grew up on the very street, 38th in Chicago is where I grew up, where I went to church right on that block.
Wow.
That's my neighborhood, where I grew up, where my grandmother lived, my mother, everybody in our family lived right in that neighborhood. And the reason I say that is because, you know, it's powerful. And, you know, to raise the name of George Floyd and his family that went through this crisis. But yes, CDFIs have played an instrumental role. And in fact, after the riots that took place and the protests, CDFIs have been working with businesses of color that were directly impacted. Many of their businesses were destroyed during the uprising that occurred in Minneapolis. Organizations such as the Latino Development Center and the African Development Center and MEDA, the organization that I was a part of, we've all pitched in to rebuild those businesses because Twin Cities is a really multicultural place. And so CDFIs are playing the lead role in providing capital because they have the relationships. The reason CDFIs are successful is they have direct relationship with the community. They're building trusted relationships with those communities. So yes, CDFIs are making a difference across the country, but they're also making a difference in building economic power within communities of color so that we can actually have a world that works equally well for everyone. And that's what I'm striving for. Man.
I know I sound like a nerd, but this gets me really excited. So I hope y'all behind your cameras are just as excited. So thank you so much, Gary. We're going to now bring on Calvin Holmes, who is the vice chair of the African American Alliance of CDFI CEOs. And he's the president of the Chicago Community Loan Fund, a CDFI that finances projects that revitalize neighborhoods across Metro Chicago.
Great. Thanks, Bria. Good afternoon, everyone, and happy Cinco de Mayo. It's really a pleasure to be with all of you today. I can tell you that I'm really delighted that you're looking into a fulfilling, mission-driven career that will allow you to do an enormous amount of good and to help make the world a better place and to be your brother's and your sister's keeper as I was at your age. And I know you think I'm really young, but I'm much older than I may appear. So let me share a little bit more about CDFIs. I really enjoyed listening to Bria and Lenwood and Gary. They're tough acts to follow. But you may not know this, but CDFIs were born out of the civil rights movement. We have a strong and unshakable commitment to racial justice and economic justice. And these days, we're also climate resiliency pioneers. We operate at the intersection of heart and head. That is, through our head, we are focused on profitability and making sure that we operate at surpluses. And through our heart, we are not about maximizing profit. We want to make sure that our customers do well and that their projects and enterprises are successful. We are completely committed to low-income communities, and we are community investors, and we're actually impact investors. And we've got a slide here that can help you appreciate how much we serve people of color, a subset of the CDFI universe represented by the OFN membership, serve 60% people of color. 84% of our customers are in low-income communities or in areas that have historically been underinvested. In terms of where we work, 47% of our customers reside in major urban markets, like some of the cities where you live. 25% of our customers reside in minor urban markets, and 28% of our customers are actually in rural America. So we cover the entire country. It's important to point out that we provide a mix of products and services that meet almost all of the needs of a community. We have affordable loans combined with lots of support for our borrowers and our applicants. And our loans are actually restorative. They're flexibly designed so that they can meet the needs of our borrowers and help make it easier for them to repay them so that their organizations can grow. I can't think of a single CDFI, actually, you all, that doesn't provide extensive technical assistance and business advisory services. This intentional support helps the individuals and businesses get ready to borrow. Sometimes it can take months or in some cases years to help our customers become loan ready, but it usually pays off. And the support continues after the loan is made as well. We don't operate in a turnkey way. And we do this because it helps the borrowers overcome their challenges. And it's also another way for us to make sure that our loans get repaid. As a group of lenders, we are incredibly responsive and innovative institutions, and we respond to a whole wide range of needs. Our lending and our technical assistance divisions covers almost every aspect, almost every area, almost every asset class that a community could need. So if you look at the slide in front of you, we are financing micro enterprise, small business, commercial real estate. We can help people buy a home. We finance multifamily affordable housing development. We support community healthcare centers, charter schools, community facilities that provide arts and culture to neighborhoods that are often overlooked. As I mentioned, we're working to help our customers build energy efficient, high quality homes that are sustainable. We work at the asset building level, helping individuals improve their credit and providing alternatives to fringe and payday lenders. We also serve specific populations like veterans and the disability community. And a number of us are trying to provide financing to help members of our community that are returning from incarceration start their own businesses. And we even work to help new Americans gain their citizenship and take care of expenses related to that. So as you can see, it's incredibly exciting work. Unfortunately, most of us don't have large marketing budgets. So you won't see us on TV. Very few of us have the money to spend on television ads, but in actuality, we are everywhere. So the CDFI Friendly America has created their own tracking of where CDFIs are from coast to coast. And you can actually go to their website and pull up this map that you see on the screen. So an analysis that they did through the end of December, you'll see that there are almost 1,300 certified CDFIs. We're actually certified by a unit of the US Treasury, and we're managing an estimated $222 billion in assets. And we operate, as you can see, across all 50 states, the District of Columbia, Puerto Rico, and Guam. And that includes 70 CDFIs that operate in native country. This map is showing where CDFIs are headquartered, and you can see that some states have as few CDFI headquarters as one, in the case of North Dakota and Nevada, some as few as two, Guam, Rhode Island, and Wyoming. And then you have some CDFI rich states like California, Mississippi, and New York that actually have over 80 CDFIs serving their state. Fortunately, there are also many CDFIs that serve multiple states, or they have national markets, and these tend to be our largest CDFIs. Now, there are essentially four types of CDFIs. There are unregulated loan funds, as you can see, that representing about 45% of the types of CDFIs. There are also credit unions representing about 29% of us, and then 25% of the CDFIs are banks, thrifts, and holding companies. We have a small percentage of CDFIs that are also VC funds, if you will. So in terms of our staffing, and we don't have a slide for this one, historically, loan funds have been wider than the markets that they serve. However, we're having this series of workshops because we're trying to change that. We'd like for the CDFI industry to be more diverse and to be more representative of the people that we serve. A few more statistics for you. Among OFN members, on average, as you saw in an earlier slide, 60% of the beneficiaries that we serve are people of color. However, unfortunately, at least today, only 41% of our staff and 34% of our managers are people of color. So we're trying to change that. So I'm putting out a challenge to the industry to match what my agency has been able to do. I'm really proud of this. 85% of the management team of the Chicago Community Loan Fund and 83% of our staff are persons of color. So we're putting out the call to action for all CDFIs to become more diverse and representative. I'm happy to share with you that the credit union members of OFN are more representative though. 61% of them serve majority minority markets, and 67% of their management are from majority minority markets. So the credit unions are doing better, but we've still got a way to go. So folks, we are incredibly excited that you all have an interest in building a career in community finance, that you want to do good, that you want to get into a lot more good trouble. And the upside of this is that you can do those things while also unlocking your full potential. And you'll have many great colleagues to work with as you make our communities better. So I wish all of you great luck. And I know that we're going to have lots of ways to continue talking, and I'd love to be of assistance to you as you move forward. So Bria, I'll pass it back to you and see if there are questions.
Thank you, Calvin. One, all of those statistics are absolutely amazing, and thank you for giving all of that information. I hate to give you the short end of the stick, but we don't have time for the questions right here. However, we are about to transition to our networking rooms where you guys can ask questions for everyone. So we're going to break our networking rooms into 5 different rooms where we have 5 different CDFIs. Some of the types of CDFIs that Calvin just explained, but I know that was a lot of information. So you hear loan fund, you're like, what's that? I don't know. So you can go into these different networking rooms and ask those questions. You'll meet the staff members. There's going to be 2 staff members from each CDFI there. They'll give maybe a 5-minute overview of their CDFI in their own career path. And then they're going to open it up for your questions. So take a look at the ones that we have here: Accompany Capital, Sinair, Community First Fund, Latino Community Credit Union, and Southern Bancorp. And you can decide which one you'd like to go into. But the best thing about this is that you're not stuck to one networking room here. You can join one and then you can hop out of it and go to another. We'd like to see if there's 20 people in one, maybe go to another one, because you'll be able to get more of a one-on-one intimate experience that way. These networking rooms are going to have a 30-minute limit, but that's not a hard stop. If you are having the most passionate conversation you've ever had in your life, we're not going to kick you out. You can stay on for a couple more minutes afterwards. However, we're not going to come back to this big room. So this is the last time that I'm going to see you before our next webinar next Wednesday. And that's CDFI jobs, who does what and what can I do? So I say that to say, don't go in this networking room and say, girl, can I get a job? That's not what we're doing for this one. This one is figuring out these types of CDFIs and learning the CDFI 101. The next couple webinars, we'll learn more about the jobs. So a little bit of a how-to here, and we can stop screen sharing. To get to those, oh, I see a question. 1 second, Clara, I will answer your question. The how-to, you're going to get a pop-up that says you've been invited to a breakout room. If you're on a computer, you'll be able to hover over the breakout room icon at the bottom of your screen and get to that, get to the breakout rooms. You'll be able to hover over the number of the people in the breakout rooms and you can join or move to that one. If you're on an iPad or a phone, we're going to have to assign you. So you can put your choice of your networking room in the chat and we will assign you to that one. If you are calling in, again, just wait in this main room and then you can unmute yourself in a little and tell us which one you want to be in and we'll switch you there. Clara asked, can people still register even if they weren't here today? Yes, you can still register. You'll get the registration link for all of the rest of the webinars. And again, afterwards, you'll get a certificate of completion. Let me make sure there's nothing else I need to tell you about the breakout rooms. I think I've covered everything, but if there are more questions, please let me know. And I think we can open those up now.